Welcome to the video of IT governance. In this 10-minute training video, I will provide you with a step-by-step understanding of how IT governance works. We will discuss these three levels of IT regulation. And this is a very brief video, a simplified overview of IT governance. We will not be doing a deep dive into the governance framework, but just discussing a simplified version of it. So policies is the first step. These are the foundation of the governance framework. These are developed by the senior management, and then policies are further translated into standards by the architecture teams, and then standards are further dissected and composed into several procedure documents. The procedure documents will tell you how to implement. They will have steps on how to implement these standards and policy requirements. So step one, policy deployment or policy development, sorry. So policies are the foundation of IT governance. So first thing is to have the policies. So usually within an organization, there is this IT compliance and information security team, which will take into consideration the various frameworks, IT standards like ISO 27001 or NIST standards, and then based on that, they will draft a security policy which will give a general statement of what role security will play within the organization. So it will define on a very superficial level um, about the IT security requirements and recommendations for the organization. Step two, standards development. So standards will help in translating policies into more specific and actionable items. So standards will add the specific details that are missing from the policy and some technical requirements and how to achieve them on a higher level. So you can have like one or two or maybe few policy documents, but there can be several standard documents that will cover these requirements of policies in detail. So standards document are created to meet the goals that are stated in the policy, and the standards are usually developed by the IT security architects. Step 3, work instruction and procedures document. So work instructions and procedures, they provide a step-by-step guidance on implementing the policies and standards. So work instructions will break down the complex tasks into manageable steps. They will have clear directions for the IT teams, and they will outline the processes that are needed, the methodologies that are required to achieve those objectives. And the these work instructions and procedures are usually developed by the IT services teams. So IT services, it under its umbrella, it has these various teams of IT admins, technicians, support staff, service desk, network. So these teams will pick up these standards, and as per their own KRAs, they will work on writing these procedure documents for their teams, for their peers, which will then have a sequence of steps in detail defining on how to achieve these objectives from the standards. Let's take an example here of user password requirement. This will help us to understand what statements will go into policy, what will be the corresponding standard based on that policy, and what the procedure document will be for implementation. So if you take this example, then the password policy, the policy document for password requirement will give these general statements about the security of the user password. For example, if you see this statement here, password complexity, it states passwords must meet certain complexity criteria such as minimum length, combination of uppercase, lowercase numbers, etc. But it is not giving you the minimum length. It is not giving this specific detail like what should be the minimum length. Now this is defined by the IT security architects. IT security architects will take into consideration the current security landscape and the organization objectives, and then they will define in the standards document this specific detail. So if you check here, the password standard document, on the password length, it is stating that the password must be of 8 characters long. Similarly, for password expiration, password history, if you check, the password policy here is just giving the general statements. It is just stating here that password should have a predefined expiration period, but it is not telling you what should be this expiration period. The password standards document is telling you what should be the expiration period. It is telling you there that password should expire every 90 days. Similarly, for password history, for account lockout, if you check, these are very general statements that the password policy document is making about user password requirement. It is not giving you the specified number, these failed login attempts details. Here in the standards document, if you see, it is giving you these details. Account lockout rule in the password standard document is telling you that after 6 consecutive failed login attempts, the user account will be locked, and it will be locked for 15 minutes. It is giving you this time duration. Whereas if you see here in the account lockout statement in the policy, it is just a general statement. It is not telling you that for how much time the account will remain locked out. Whereas the password standard document is giving you that technical and those specific details. So this is how the standards document will translate the policy by adding these specific details, these technical requirements, these security details, and then help the policymakers to achieve their goals. Now, the password procedure document is different from the policy and standard documents. Here, there are no rules, but there are procedures. There are step-by-step instructions telling you how to create a strong password. For example, this password creation procedure document can be for the users. It will tell the users how to create a strong and a secure password. It will have those instructions. It will include some examples of acceptable password formats. Similarly, for password change, it will guide the users. It will have some steps, including instructions telling users how to change their password. Similarly, for account lockout here, it will have instructions, steps for the IT support staff to instructing them on how to handle the um, locked out user accounts. For example, if a user calls into service desk, he states that my account is locked out. The service desk team will have this procedure document, will have these instructions that will tell the service desk person on how to unlock the account for the user. It will have these guidelines that will say how to authenticate, how to validate the identity of the user, what security questions to ask to validate the identity of the user. So this is what the procedure documents will look like. I hope with this example you got some clarity on this policy, standard, and procedure. That's it then. Thank you for joining me today in this discussion, and I hope that by understanding this IT governance, this video has helped you to grasp the general concept of IT governance, and I hope you have understood how IT governance is orchestrated within the organization, how policies form the base, and then based on the policy, the standards are developed and the procedures are developed. The orchestration of these three levels is very important to achieve effective IT regulation, because if there are no policies, then there will be no standards, there will be no procedures. But at the same time, if you just have policies and there are no standards and there are no procedure documents in place, then you will not have effective IT regulation in place. And I have seen this working with some organizations that they had just the policies. There were no standards document, there were no procedures document. In that case, the policies were developed just for the auditor's sake, and these documents were just kept on a file share and only were opened during the audits to show the auditor that we have the policies in place. But there were no standards translating these policies, and then there were no procedure documents further communicating to the users on the ground level, telling what the security policies or the security requirements are. So in that case, then the IT governance is weak. So that is the reason policies must be translated into standards and then further into procedures. This will help to communicate all the users the goals, the objectives of IT security that are decided by the senior management, by the strategic teams, and then the goals can be achieved. So thank you for watching this video. You can comment in case if you want any of these concepts to be explained in detail. I will make a video on them. Thank you.